My dear ones, let me welcome you to my sunlit kitchen here in Dallas. I'm Martha Jane Hawthorne, but everyone calls me Marty. I'm 75 now, and I spend my mornings kneading dough for bread, for biscuits, for the best damn fruit cobbler in this entire county. But before the peace, before the warm smell of yeast and sugar, there was Black Creek, Arkansas, and the suffocating scent of cheap liquor and old wood. This is a memory I have carried for over 60 years. A story about how, at 12 years old, I became the currency from my father's ruin. It began in the early 1960s. My father, Roy Hawthorne, owned a small lumber yard, a proud man, but deeply flawed. He built our life around the smell of fresh pine and sawdust, but he also built our financial life on shaky, desperate promises. My mother, Clara, was the gentle heart of our simple home, but she was constantly battling a recurring fever and what the doctor vaguely called the nervous exhaustion of living with Roy. The trouble started when Roy mortgaged the lumber yard to Theron Vance, the most powerful and ruthless timber baron in the whole county. Vance was an aging man with a reputation as cold as the Black Creek in winter, and a hand in nearly every business venture in our small town. The business was failing, and Roy's drinking was increasing in direct proportion to his desperation. One cold Tuesday, just after my 12th birthday, my father's anxiety was a physical thing, thick and poisonous. My mother had taken her strong sleeping tonic and was snoring heavily, her familiar rhythmic sound the only constant in our chaotic life. Roy woke me in the dead of night, his hand trembling as he helped me dress. "Marty, my girl," he whispered, his voice smelling of sour whiskey and fear. "Daddy has debts, big debts, but I have an arrangement, a new job for you at Mr. Vance's lodge. It's important family business." He led me through the dark, empty streets to a back alley leading to Vance's lodge, a private hunting resort that was secretly a high-stakes gambling and drinking den for the town elite. Roy knocked a coded rhythm on the unmarked service door. A large, greasy man let us in. "She's here, as agreed," Roy stammered, his eyes glazed over. The man looked me up and down, and then Roy gently pushed me forward into a narrow, dark hallway that reeked of stale smoke and old secrets. "Go on, sweetheart," he muttered, shoving me toward a dimly lit small room. "They just want you to talk to them. It's part of the arrangement. Now you're going to pay my debt." He closed the door, and I heard the lock click. I sat alone, small and scared, on a bed that smelled of mold. It was only minutes later that the door opened again. It wasn't my father. It was Mr. Silas, the kind old gentleman who sold me penny candy at the general store every Sunday. His eyes, in the dim light, were not kind. I understood then, with a paralyzing chill, that my job was not talking. My father had not found a solution. He had found a new kind of bondage. The night with Mr. Silas was the beginning of a relentless, soul-crushing routine that solidified my terror. What happened in that small, foul-smelling room at Vance's lodge became a terrible, silent education. I was no longer a child who played with dolls. I was merchandise, an inventory item in my father's spiraling debt ledger. For almost 5 years, twice or 3 times a week, the grotesque ritual was the same. Roy would wait until my mother, Clara, was deep in her drug-induced sleep. Then his shaky hand would wake me for the lonely midnight walk to the back entrance of the lodge. "Let's go, Marty. I have debts to settle," he'd whisper, the words freezing my blood. The men, the doctors, the lawyers, the shop owners, the very pillars of Black Creek society were the ones waiting. They were good people, as my father had claimed, people who smiled and tipped their hats to my mother in church. But in the dark, they became the monstrous consumers of my childhood. I learned to recognize the subtle shift in their eyes on the street, the sudden sharp glance that held a secret only we shared. The secrecy became my cage. Roy constantly hammered the same lie into my young head. "If you tell your mother, the shame will kill her. Her heart can't take it. You'll be responsible for your own mother's death." Looking at Clara, frail and wasted, drowning her pain in pills, I believed him. I would never be the thing that finally broke her. So I carried the monstrous secret alone, pretending to be a normal girl during the day. School was hell. How could I focus on my geometry lesson when I was mentally counting the number of men who had been through the lodge's back door that week? My grades dropped. My sweet teacher, Mrs. Evelyn, pulled me aside, worried. She thought I was nervous, like my mother. I just nodded, accepting the chamomile tea she offered, knowing that no tea could calm the storm raging inside me. As I turned 15, my body changed, and the nature of the transactions changed too. The men's comments became bolder, more disgusting. They talked about me as if I were cattle, making bets and comparisons. I was watching my mother wither like a plant without water, consuming more medication, retreating deeper into her inner world. I knew she suspected something. I saw the unshed tears in her eyes, the way she avoided looking at Roy. But she was too scared, too broken to ask. Then one Friday night, Roy was gone for hours. When he finally stumbled in, he was a wreck, drunk, sobbing and pacing the living room. "It's all gone, Marty. Everything." I crept closer and heard him muttering into the phone, his voice ragged. "Vance is demanding the final payment. He wants the deed to the lumber yard and the house, and he wants her permanently." Permanently. The word was a branding iron burning through my despair. I wasn't just paying a debt. I was about to be transferred into a lifelong prison on Vance's remote plantation. I stood there frozen, realizing I had less than 24 hours until I stopped being a person and started being Theron Vance's permanent property. The next morning, Saturday, September 28th, 1963, Roy was passed out cold on the ground next to his old Ford truck, reeking of desperation and cheap liquor. Clara was snoring, heavily drugged, in the bedroom. The house was silent, but for me, the silence was deafening, the final countdown to my doom. I looked down at my father's unconscious body and saw a small, leather-bound notebook lying on the dusty ground, fallen from his pocket. My heart hammered. I picked it up, my hands trembling violently, and retreated to the kitchen, switching on the overhead light. It was Roy's luck book, a simple ledger where he meticulously recorded every business transaction, every bet, every debt. With tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the yellowed pages, I began to read. The first pages were filled with gambling scores from his lumberyard, followed by mounting debt. But the next column, labeled Payment Method, contained the truth so monstrous, I nearly collapsed. March 15, 1958, debt to S. Riverdale, pharmacist, $50, payment, MJ for service, age 12, first time. Roy had turned my body into a macabre accounting record. 5 years of humiliation and violation were summarized in cold, clinical dates and transactions. I flipped frantically through the pages, seeing the names I recognized, the mayor, the judge, the banker, each followed by the disgusting notation, MJ until early morning, MJ to clear balance, MJ for weekly interest. The men who had been smiling at me on the street corner had meticulously documented their own monstrous depravity through my father's hand. I reached the last few pages, the newest entries detailing the catastrophic loss from Friday night, written in Roy's shaky, desperate hand. Big game with Vance. Lost the yard deed, plus all cash, plus $2,000 note. Total debt, $6,000 plus the homestead. Then came the final, gut-wrenching line, the one that stopped my heart and shattered the last remnant of the girl I was. Final payment, permanent delivery of MJ as special employee to Vance Plantation, tomorrow at 10 a.m. He hadn't just sold me for a few nights to clear a debt, he had bet my entire life and lost. I was to be a permanent slave to Theron Vance, a man known throughout the county for his sadistic cruelty to his workers, especially the women. I closed the notebook, the adrenaline pumping a terrifying resolve through my veins. I had reached the absolute end. In 12 hours, my life would be over. But in that moment, the shame that had silenced me for 5 years was replaced by a furious, burning rage. If my life was going to be destroyed anyway, I was going to drag the entire respectable, rotten town down with me. I stood up, gripping the ledger. My father had written my fate in these pages, but I realized he had also accidentally written the obituary for the entire Black Creek power structure. I knew where the whole town elite would gather tomorrow, the annual Harvest Festival luncheon. I had a weapon, a stage, and nothing left to lose. I had to choose between being a victim at Vance's plantation or a firebrand on the public platform.
Sunday morning, the day of my reckoning, dawned bright and deceptively peaceful. Roy, waking up with a splitting hangover, was too consumed by panic to notice the cold resolution in my eyes. He was focused only on getting me presentable for the 10 a.m. transfer to Vance's plantation. He had no idea I had the instrument of his destruction, and the town's, hidden beneath my simple Sunday dress. The annual Black Creek Harvest Festival was the social event of the year, held in the town hall. It was packed with every prominent citizen, the men who used me, their wives who lived in blissful ignorance, and the politicians who kept their secrets. My father, frantic and trying to maintain a facade of dignity, led me to the gathering. He found Theron Vance near the dais, who gave me a cold, possessive smile. "She looks ready, Roy," Vance drawled, nodding toward me. "A handsome trade." The luncheon was interrupted by the ceremony. Reverend Thompson called Roy to the stage to offer a short testimonial on community strength due to his recent business dealings. Roy, sweating profusely, stumbled toward the microphone. This was my moment. As Roy reached the top step, I moved. I pushed past him, grabbed the microphone stand, and pulled it toward me. "Excuse me, everyone," I called out, my voice thin but amplified, echoing through the packed hall. The murmur of conversation ceased. 200 eyes turned to the stage. I saw my father's face turn white like paper, realizing where I was and what I might do. Vance, from his seat, started to rise, a silent threat in his eyes. My name is Martha Jane Hawthorne. I am 17 years old, and I am here today because tomorrow morning I am scheduled to be transferred into permanent service to Mr. Theron Vance to clear my father's debt. A ripple of stunned disbelief ran through the crowd. I pulled the leather-bound ledger from beneath my dress, holding it up like a holy text. This is my father's account book. I am going to read you the inventory. My father screamed, "Stop that!" and lurched forward, but two strong local farmers, Dr. Ferrer and Mr. Allen, grabbed him, holding him back. I started reading, my eyes scanning the crowd, naming the men and their sins. March 15th, 1958. Payment to Mr. Silas Riverdale, pharmacist. One night with Marty, age 12. The pharmacist's wife shrieked and collapsed in her chair. I didn't stop. I named the judge, the banker, and the sheriff's brother, detailing their debt amounts and the horrifying payment I was forced to render. The hall dissolved into chaos, wives sobbing, men shouting, "Lies! Lies!" and the sheriff, pale and defeated, watching his town implode. I reached the final entry. I looked straight at Vance, who was paralyzed by the sudden public truth. Yesterday's agreement. Final debt to Mr. Vance, $6,000 plus the homestead deed. Payment, definitive and permanent delivery of Martha Jane Hawthorne as a special employee to Vance Plantation. The microphone dropped from my shaking hand. I had named the devil, and the fire had finally started.
The chaos that followed my confession was immediate and absolute. Within the hour, the sheriff, a good man who had been blinded by the town's false piety, recovered and took both Roy Hawthorne and Theron Vance into custody. Vance's powerful network imploded instantly. The town elite who had used me were exposed, their secrets laid bare by my father's ledger. The shock of the public, documented truth was too much for the respectable facade of Black Creek to bear. I was taken in by Mrs. Evelyn, my sweet teacher, who finally understood the source of my nervousness. The ledger became the key piece of evidence, and my detailed testimony, delivered with the cold, precise memory of a victim who had internalized every date and name, led to the swift conviction of Vance for conspiracy, coercion, and multiple felonies. Roy was charged as well, not only for the crimes against me, but for the illegal gambling operation. The price of their hypocrisy was justice. My mother, Clara, was hospitalized, unable to withstand the shock of the truth. She passed away a few months later, still fragile, but finally free from the burden of the unknown. Her death was tragic, but I knew she died without the final shame of knowing the full horror her husband had inflicted. Jesse, my fictional older brother from the earlier script, doesn't exist in this version. I am an only child. I and the proceeds from the eventual sale of the lumberyard's remaining equipment allowed me to leave Black Creek for good. I put myself through college and found my way to Dallas, never looking back. I built a life rooted in the principle that silence is the accomplice of evil. Today, when I tend my garden, planting basil, chives, and tomatoes, I am tending to the peace I earned through fire. The smell of fresh earth, not stale whiskey, is my anchor. The scar of that trauma remains, but it no longer defines me. I am defined by the rage that finally spoke the truth and the courage that stood on that stage. To anyone listening, remember the story of Marty and the ledger. If someone is silencing you with shame or threats, find your stage. Find your voice, because a single, small truth spoken loudly can collapse an empire of lies. Do not be currency. Be the sword.